From Mid-Ohio Racecourse, this is the North American Sports Car Championship. 2.4 miles of twisting asphalt over the hills and dales of America's heartland. A huge crowd on hand for today's event. Hello there, everybody. I'm Gil Stratton, welcoming you to the world's richest sports car race. It's a beautiful day, the temperature in the low 70s, a light breeze wafting across these green hills. This is the richest sports car race in the world because of the unique hybrid field. And to tell you more about it, it's a pleasure to introduce my working partner, one of America's foremost motor racing experts, Mr. Brock Yates.
Thanks, Gil. This is really going to be fun. The Lumbermens 500 is a kind of a run-what-you-brung sports car race. There are all kinds of classes of vehicles running here, ranging from the ultra-fast Can-Am cars down to the more reliable but slightly slower GT machines. And it's going to be a race that's going to pit those two kinds of cars together. It's a 312-mile race, 500 kilometers. That means between 2 and 3 pit stops for most of the cars. They'll all be running 2 drivers. There'll be a driver change for each one of the vehicles. That'll all take place here in the pit area, and that's where we're going to be for the most of the afternoon, and we'll be reporting that action to you for the whole race.
Okay, thank you, Brock. And as the drivers are getting ready, we'd like to show you why Mid-Ohio is known as one of the most competitive courses in America and therefore an appropriate site for the North American Sports Car Championship. To give you an idea what these drivers will be facing in the Lumbermens 500, Diamond P Sports will take you around the race course with Steve Alexander at the wheel of Joe Sawyer's car. They're both from Columbus, Ohio. And Brock Yates, as we get ready to come out of the pits, we're going down into turn number 1.
Out the gate here along pit row, Gil, and around this blind left-hander at the head of the pit straight. It's a pretty hairy, pretty fast corner. Leads out onto one of Mid-Ohio's rather rare straightaways.
As you go up the hill, you're headed for the chicane, which is climaxed by a very tight turn, the keyhole.
Yeah, it's at the crest of a little hill, Gil. It's a right-hander. It's blind over the top of a hill. It's got kind of a reverse angle camber. The cars want to fall off on the outside as they sweep around here and head out onto the long back straight.
And there is the long back straight. It's about 3/4 of a mile. They will reach speeds up to 180 miles an hour. Brock, what's waiting for them down at the end of it?
A bunch of grief if their brakes don't work, Gil, because it's a sharp right-hander here. A second gear corner, probably about 70 or 80 miles an hour, and then they sweep around here and again crest a little hill. Hairy stuff. Look at this. Look at all these black marks. People slid off into the weeds here a few times. And down here around this sweeping right-hander and heading into a very twisty part on the back part of the circuit.
As you look at it from the aerial view, the track looks a lot wider than it does when you're down there racing.
Yeah, and especially if you're trying to get by somebody, you'd be surprised how wide these cars can get if they don't want to let you pass. Now we're heading around this little sweeping left-hander and into what's called the carousel, which is a very wide, looping right-hand corner that leads onto the finishing straight.
And there it is, right past the start and finish line.
Yes, sir. About 140 miles an hour down here, Gil. A quick corner coming up here, that left-hander we talked about at the head of the lap.
And now you've seen why that this is one of the most competitive courses in America. Back at the Lumbermens 500, the Kentucky Derby, or high society of auto racing. And one of the traditions of this track, the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in Lexington, is the firing of the starting bomb, and that is the signal for the drivers to go to their cars and prepare to race. Let's set the field for you. On the pole will be John Morton in car number 15. That is the Frisbee, the only ground effects car in the race as he puts on his safety equipment. Number 1 is Brian Redmond, driving a Lola. He's had 7 starts here at Mid-Ohio, winning 5 times and second on the other 2 occasions. Number 11 will be driven by Vern Chupan. It's an Elfin, a Can-Am car. He owns it himself, now lives in Phoenix, Arizona. Jim Truman will drive car number 25. He's a local favorite, a wealthy sportsman from Columbus. John David Briggs saying hi to his fans. He's driving a small version of the Can-Am car, under 2 liters. Gianpiero Moretti, and he gets a good luck kiss. A true Italian gentleman. No, don't wipe it off. Ted Field from Newport Beach, California, driving a Porsche 935. He's the heir to the Marshall Field fortune. Chris Cord of Beverly Hills driving a Monza, member of the famous Cord family. And veteran George Foma from Arcadia, comfortable in all kinds of cars and racing, back from a major accident 2 years ago. And we're just about ready to roll. There's the starter, Jack Sweeney, and he has the cars on the grid under his control at the moment. And Brock, with 38 cars starting, there could be some traffic problems.
Oh yeah, Gil, a bunch of traffic problems. There's some slow cars at the back of this grid, and everybody's sitting out there right now alone with their thoughts. Certainly Redmond and Morton are making sure those cars are stuck in gear and their foot is on the clutch and the throttle. And one thing they don't want to do is do something stupid. That's the one fear of a race driver in a standing start, to stall the thing or to lose out to the guy beside you.
That would be embarrassing. And now you can see the field is rolling. And they're beginning to, everybody has started underway. They are rolling down toward the first turn in this practice lap. You see them as they jiggle back and forth like that. They're trying to heat up the tires to get better traction. This richest sports car race in the world has attracted a great field and is supported by the Lumbermens Mutual Insurance Company, a leader in quality insurance coverage. And it's located just a couple of gear shifts away from here in Mansfield, Ohio. This North American Sports Car Championship with all kinds and various types of sports cars, which could cause a lot of traffic problems out there. And you see them jiggling back and forth. They're getting those tires heated up as they go up toward the top of the course, up toward the keyhole. And to explain the various kinds of machinery that you're going to see racing today and what makes the race unique and different, Brock Yates came out earlier in the week for a close-up look at the cars and to tell us exactly how they are.
Variety is the spice of life in all kinds of sports, and especially here in the Lumbermens 500, where we have a number of different types of vehicles competing. Perhaps a sentimental favorite among them might be this All-American GT car, which started life a number of years ago as a Chevrolet Monza sports coupe and has since been heavily modified. Now it carries a 600 horsepower V8 engine of about 365 cubic inches, weighs about 2,100 pounds, ready to race, and is a terribly quick car, although it is designed more for sprint-type racing than it is for long-distance endurance racing of the type we're going to see here. So it may not be at its best advantage in this event. On the other hand, this is a serious contender. This is one of the famed Porsche 935 endurance cars, a GT car that has won most of the major endurance races in the world. It's roughly the same size and weight as the Monza, except it carries an engine about half the size, displacement-wise, and yet develops more horsepower thanks to its twin turbocharged engine. More important, it's a terribly reliable automobile and is designed for quick tire changes, quick brake pad changes, quick fuel changes of the type that are going to be necessary to be made in a race of this distance. But it could be the very distance of this event that could pose problems for this automobile. This is certainly one of the fastest cars in the race. This is one of the famed Can-Am cars that run in American racetracks. It carries a stock block American engine of about 305 cubic inches, developing about 550 horsepower. It's very light, about 1,700 pounds, which means that it carries a considerable advantage over these cars in terms of its ability to brake and accelerate. The problem with the automobile is that it's designed for about 200-mile races, relatively short races, and doesn't have the components that make tire changes or brake pad changes easy. And moreover, as you can see, the single-seat configuration makes a driver change difficult. So I suppose this race is going to boil down to a classic confrontation between the tortoise and the hare.
All right, here they come around the carousel toward the starting line. The pace car has pulled off onto pit row. The green flag is out, and we are racing. And look at the Frisbee jump out in front, the pole sitter. Number 15 with John Morton at the wheel, going in through turn 1 very smoothly. Brian Redmond and the Yellow Lola, car number 1, running second. Vern Chupin and number 11 is in third place. But the early moments of this race belong to the car you're looking at right now, the Frisbee.
And well, they should, Gil. This car is an incredible machine. It's the fastest car currently on the Can-Am trail. It's a ground effects machine, and that means that it's got a special body, a very envelope-type body, as you can see here, that literally sucks the car down onto the racetrack like a giant vacuum cleaner. In years past, designers have used wings and spoilers to push the car down on the racetrack by the air passing over the top of the bodywork. But now, with the Frisbee and other cars, Formula One cars now, and Indianapolis cars are using the air passing between the racetrack and the undercarriage of the car to make the automobile act like a giant vacuum cleaner. And it's working so well here through the twisty parts of Mid-Ohio. Even now, John has pulled out a big lead on Brian Redmond back in that second place car. So the Frisbee and its ground effects is working flawlessly.
And here comes Morton completing the first lap of the Lumbermens 500 out in front. Brian Redmond in second place and Vern Chupin running third. John Morton, what makes this event so difficult?
We're running against cars that are 20, maybe even as much as a half a minute slower, and it's just very busy. This is a very busy track anyway in a Can-Am car or in a 935 Porsche because it's a tight track with very few straightaways to relax. And then when you're passing 5, maybe 6, 7 cars a lap, every lap is very, very fatiguing, and it's also quite dangerous in that if any of them make a mistake, and they have so much opportunity in 300 miles to do that, that would put you out.
John Morton doing very, very well, but he has serious concern over being hit in that Frisbee. As we look at the second place car, Brian Redmond in the yellow Lola number 1. And into the pits is number 20, R. Steve Payne Herbert from Mansfield, Ohio. Obviously, this is an unscheduled pit stop, Brock.
Yeah, local boy does not make good on that one, Gil.
And the Frisbee now coming into traffic, lapping some of the slower cars for the first time. But he is wailing. They don't want to give him room to pass.
Now, this is the part that he's concerned about. Redmond's concerned about all the faster cars. A lot of these slower machines don't like to give way because they're involved in little races of their own.
There's Brian Redmond going for his 6th win here at Mid-Ohio. Talk about horses for courses. What a race driver.
Gil, let's not forget Vern Chupin back here in third place in this 4-year-old Elephant. It's an obsolete car, and he brought it out of retirement for one reason: the $40,000 first place money.
And look at this battle for 4th place. Briggs in car number 6, Moretti in car number 30, and they are really dicing.
Interesting contrast here, Gil. Moretti's in a 935 Porsche, a GT car, heavy and not quite as quick through the corners as the little under 2-liter car of Briggs's. That's a car very similar to the one that Brian Redmond and Bobby Rahal used last year to win this race. It's well suited in Mid-Ohio. It's light and very maneuverable and really quick through the corners.
Meanwhile, back in the pits, Payne Herbert has tried new spark plugs, still no good. More of the Lumbermens 500 coming right up. Gil Stratton and Brock Yates back at Mid-Ohio with the Lumbermens 500. There you see the leaders, Morton in first place, followed by Redmond, Chupin, and Briggs in the top 4. Looking at the Frisbee, and it just seems to be handling beautifully the ground effects car. There's Brian Redmond in the second place, the Lola number 1. You see that puddle there on the infield. We had rain earlier in the week, but a beautiful afternoon for racing. There's a race developing right now for 6th place. Jim Truman in car number 25 trying to overtake Ted Field in 00.
Gil, another matchup between a GT car, that 935 Porsche, and the little under 2-liter car that Jim Truman's driving. These two types of cars are very, very well matched here at Mid-Ohio. They're slower overall than the Can-Am cars, but together they are tough.
Look out, Truman is in the spin, and Jim Truman has spun off the track. And Brian Redmond, you saw the yellow flash go by. He got by the trouble, and Jim Truman is okay. He did not stall the engine. He is back in the race. And there you see Brian Redmond, and what a dangerous spot for that Lola.
Wow, that was close, because I'll tell you something, Gil. He could not have afforded to hit Truman. That car, that number 1 car.
Oh, look out, the leader is in trouble. car number 15, the Frisbee, has lost some of its cowling. You can see the back end of the bodywork is gone. What is that going to do to the ground effects?
Gil, I don't know. I've got to guess it's going to affect the handling of the car because that's a ground effects machine and it needs its bodywork to stick on the racetrack. That's my guess, but we'll have to find out from one of the crew members.
The whole back end of the Frisbee has come off the automobile. And Brock Yates is going down to talk to Morton's co-driver, Hurley Haywood, and perhaps we can find out now.
Gil, I'm here in the pits with Hurley Haywood, John Morton's co-driver, and obviously the problem is the body work. Hurley, what will that do to the performance of the car?
Well, Brad lost the body work at the end of the straightaway, but it's not too serious. It does not affect the aerodynamics of the car. What happened was the pins on the air scoop worked themselves out, and the whole thing just lifted off the body. But we've been keeping a watch on him, and it hasn't hurt the time at all, so it's not serious.
Not serious, says Haywood, but Brock, I just wonder if he's being overly optimistic.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised, Gil. They want badly for this car to win. This Frisbee was designed and built on a shoestring by a very bright young man in California by the name of Brad Frizzell. And John Morton and he have campaigned the thing sporadically all season, but they've missed some races simply because they haven't had enough money to compete. And they've come here with high hopes and not much money. They need to win this race. And we hope that that body work hasn't affected their performance. It would be a shame to lose it simply because a piece of fiberglass flew off.
Well, you see him coming around the corners, and it seems to be holding the ground just very, very well. He's got a good line, but there is Hurley Haywood now, and he is putting on his helmet, so perhaps we are going to have a driver change. Hurley Haywood is the co-driver for John Morton in the Frisbee, car number 15, the leader. And there you look at him, but as we mentioned, he is doing very, very well, and it does not seem to be affecting the performance of the automobile, but here he comes into the pits right now. So the leader is coming into the pits.
And here it is, Gil, the leader's first pit stop. Pulls in here. As you can see, the body work is gone on the back part of the car. They're going to put on about 30 gallons of fuel. The Goodyear tire man is checking all the tires. The rubber looks good. They're bent. Hurley is, they're not going to make a driver change. Morton gets underway. No driver change. Hurley was ready to make that change, but it was not made, and Morton's back on the racetrack. Just a quick stop for fuel.
Okay, thank you, Brock. And you see the leader. There he is, and coming back out with fuel, getting through some slower traffic, and now coming up through the chicane and up toward the keyhole. One of the questions with these Can-Am cars is, will the brakes last? That's another worry that he will have. And there you see Brian Redmond in car number 1. He is running in second place.
Brian is just trying to maintain a pace with that car, Gil. He knows that he can't catch the Frisbee. Morton is clearly faster. All he's trying to do with that machine is to keep it out of trouble, to get past slower cars like he's trying to get by here. So that's a big, heavy Corvette. He doesn't want him to move into him or spin out in front of him like Truman did, because that car just won't absorb that kind of damage. It's a very, very light, frail car. He's coming into the pits.
Brian Redmond coming into the pits, the second place car. This is his first pit stop.
Looks as if he's unbuckling his helmet as he comes in, and David Hobbs, his co-driver, is standing by in the pits. They're going to make a change for sure, I'd say, Gil.
Now, Vern Chupan in car number 11 is closing in, so this is going to be a fast pit stop if they're going to maintain second place.
Hobbs is climbing in. It's a close, tight fit in that cockpit. It's going to take some time to get into that car. They've got to put those shoulder belts, shoulder harnesses on, get him down in that thing. Brian's trying to help him.
There's Chupan in car number 11. If he can get by the start and finish line before David Hobbs comes out, he will have taken over second place. And here comes Chupan. He goes past the start and finish line. David Hobbs is still in the pits, and Chupan has taken over second place. David Hobbs appears to be having some sort of an equipment problem, Brock.
Gil, I think it's a shoulder harness that he's having trouble getting fastened down. There, now he's ready. Hobbs is a very experienced man, 20 years in this business, longtime friend of mine, driven all kinds of cars, Grand Prix cars, stock cars, Indy cars, Can-Am cars. But even at that, it's going to take him a lap or two to get the feel of this race car and to really get down to doing it right. And all the while, Vern Chupan is opening the distance.
Chupin creasing the lead as David Hobbs goes up the short chute toward the chicane. And here he comes driving smoothly. Oh, look out at the top of your picture. That is the leader. The Frisbee is off in the infield. John Morton apparently blew the left rear tire on the Frisbee, so the leader has come out of the race. It looks like Morton, he appears to be okay physically. The car is still rolling, but they're not going to go far with no left rear wheel.
No, and I'll bet he broke the suspension piece somewhere along the line, Gil. That looks like what happened to me.
He is okay. He's getting out of the car, apparently, but he has got to be a very, very disheartened race driver at this moment. And there's your new leader, Vern Chupin, in car number 11. Brock Yates was able to track down Brian Redden, who has just been relieved by David Hobbs.
Brian, we've just gotten word from the other end of the pits that John Morton has blown a tire, apparently, and spun out.
Well, you know, if anybody really needs to win this race, it's John Morton. Because that Frisbee, it's a home-built car, basically. It's basically the same chassis as we have, with their own ground effect bodywork on it, and they have no money. I mean, nobody has any money, but they have a less than none. To compete in the next Can-Am race, they need to do well in this one.
Oh, so it's a doubly unfortunate loss for them.
Well, maybe the car's all right, who knows? You know, the car's so fast that if they can get the car back to the pits and change the tyre, they'll still be in good shape.
But Brock John Morton apparently feels the Frisbee is beyond repair as he heads toward the pits. First, the loss of part of the body, and now possibly the left rear suspension. But Morton's mishap has allowed David Hobbs to get up to speed, and he's handling that Lola very smoothly in second place as he chases our leader, Vern Chupin. Hobbs has found the fast groove in the racetrack, and now he is clear of the heavy traffic. Meanwhile, back in the infield, the picture that's worth 1,000 words, Frisbee driver John Morton. Back at the Lumbermens 500 in the pits, car number 30. This is the third place car as we look at the standings. Moretti is getting out and Jim Busby will replace him. Under the rules of the race, each driver must drive at least 1/3 of the race, so Jim Busby is in the car. And Vern Chupin is leading as a result. This man's bad luck. That is John Morton, the driver of the Frisbee, and you saw what happened. He was clearly the quickest man around the racetrack until he ran into trouble. And there goes Busby. He's getting out of the pits. He is running in third place. And he's picking it up. Brock Yates has caught up with his co-driver, so let's get on to Brock.
Are you going to run the last hour, or is Jim Busby going to stay in the car?
I am sure he will come out of the car because I have done 1 hour and 10 minutes and I am out.
Very hot out there.
Yes, blister and tiring, very tiring.
Tired man, but he'll be back into it in a little while. Up to you, Gil.
Thank you, Brock. And there's our leader, car number 11, Vern Chupin. They're in for a driver change, and this man is closing in. That's David Hobbs in car number 1 as Vern Chupin climbs out of the cockpit, and Howdy Holmes is going to replace him. They're going to have to make this a fast change, or Hobbs is going to be around this racetrack to take over first place, but they seem to be taking a little extra time there. Now they're putting some fuel in the car and adjusting the cockpit for Howdy Holmes. And here comes David Hobbs in the Lola, and he is really standing on it.
Gil, I think the problem is that Howdy's about half the size of Vern. He's a little guy, but with a great big right foot. So once he gets that seat right, he'll be going quickly.
And this is David Hobbs now coming down the straightaway. If he can pass the car, and he's going to do it, there he goes. David Hobbs has taken first place as Howdy Holmes is still in the pits. So there is your leader in car number 1 with David Hobbs at the wheel. The Lola, the yellow Lola, is leading the race, and Howdy Holmes is still in the pit. Perhaps they're having a little trouble getting this automobile started. And of course, right now, David Hobbs is just stretching out that lead. Maybe the battery has gone a little bit flat. Now they seem to have it going. Howdy Holmes is the Formula Atlantic champion, the former Indianapolis Rookie of the Year, and a rising star in the American racing scene. But the problem is he's not very familiar with Can-Am cars. So Howdy Holmes has his work cut out for him in trying to catch David Hobbs, currently in the lead. Brock Yates has caught up with Howdy's co-driver, Vern Chupin.
Vern, did it go basically according to plan as far as the opening stages of the race were concerned?
Yes, we just drove our own pace and tried to be as cautious as you could be with a number of different types of cars running. So we're pretty pleased that it's going along. We hoped it'd be lapping a little bit quicker than we are, but it just turns out with the traffic and an oily track, that's about as far as I was prepared to risk it, you know.
All right, Brock, and there's the leader, David Hobbs, in car number 1, running in first place. The Lola really handling very beautifully as he takes it around the curve.
We've got some problems down here in the pits, Gil. The Busby Moretti car is in. I think it's brake problems.
All right, and there is Danny Angayas, who has replaced Ted Field, and he is trying to pick up a lap on that third-place car that is in the pits at the moment. He is currently in 4th place, and here comes car number 30 with Busby out of the pits. As we watch him up to speed, and whatever that brake problem was that Brock was talking about, they seem to have straightened out. Running into a little bit of traffic, but getting through it very, very nicely indeed. Busby, as we look at Angayas going down the backstretch right now, and Brock has another guest standing by in the pits.
Gil, I'm with Roger Bailey, who's one of the finest crew chiefs and team managers in this business. He's on loan from Team McLaren for Ted Field's Interscope team this afternoon, and he's running the Ted Field's Danny Angayas operation. And we understand you got a little surprise in store for the folks as far as Danny going the rest of the way.
Well, we're going to try and give them a little surprise. We've got a little bit further behind than we wanted to, but the traffic's been so bad out there, as you probably saw in front of the pits when Ted was driving a few laps ago. The traffic's kind of destroyed our plan a little, but we're going to press on.
There is 00, Danny Angayas doing a good job. And here comes your leader on the inside, number 1. David Hobbs going through the first turn, getting by slower traffic. Like a little puff of smoke coming out of the back of that race car. There's Hobbs coming around. Oh, the car's spinning in front of him, and Hobbs has to pull off the track to avoid him. A very near miss for David Hobbs in car number 1, your leader. Brock Yates, perhaps we can take another look at that. See exactly what happened.
Well, Gil, this is a classic example of a good deed backfiring. The number 8 Porsche, driven by the Beasley Grantham team, tried to let David by, and he ducked down on the inside, got his inside wheel hooked on the grass, and managed to spin out, which forced Hobbs to the outside and around him. But he was really trying to get out Hobbs' way.
Great reflexes by David Hobbs, and he's still in the lead, and the Lumbermens 500 continues. Brock Yates and yours truly, Gil Stratton, back at the Lumbermens 500. There you see the rundown. The leaders, Redmond and Hobbs, in car number 1, the yellow Lola, and there we are. Great racing being displayed out here this afternoon for the largest sports car racing purse, as sponsored by the Lumbermens Mutual Insurance Company. And a fine pass by David Hobbs. Boy, he is smooth.
He's doing a super job. He's a very, very experienced driver, Gil, and he's got a lot of power in hand and a lot of maneuverability with that car. Good brakes, a bunch of horsepower, and he's doing fine as long as people stay out of his way.
And here's the car running in 2nd place, number 11, driven by Vern Chupan. And I would think that at this point in the race, there could be a little bit of oil getting on the track and getting a little on the slick slide.
Yeah, it's bound to happen at this stage. There's some rubber being laid down, a little oil, Gil, but these people are prepared for that.
Here is Danny Angayas in car number 00, battling for 3rd along with Jim Busby. This is the car that could win the race. This is the tortoise in the true confrontation of the tortoise and the hare.
Well, these 935 Porsches are sensational machines. They're designed for endurance racing. They're strong as anvils and very, very quick.
Look out, we got a problem. There's a car spinning down there. It is Jim Busby. Jim Busby went off the course, gets it right back on, and he may have been giving up his chance for 3rd place with that one.
Well, old Jim just overcooked it. He was trying to get by that Corvette on the outside, just got out of the groove and spun it, And he's very, very lucky he didn't bounce that thing off that steel guardrail there, which these cars don't take kindly to. But old Jim gets it underway, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's quick enough so this pit crew didn't even know he lost it.
Here he comes. And boy, you're right, he is cooking as he comes by the start-finish line. And we've got a problem. Number 25, Chip Mead, is off in the grass again, and there appears to be some front-end damage to the automobile.
Well, Gil, that thing's been out in the grass twice today, and these little cars just don't take kindly to that treatment. They're going to have some problems repairing that.
There's your leader, David Hobbs, and I would imagine that one of the problems that he is thinking about now would be just that, the traffic and staying out of the way of these cars, that as the drivers begin to find some fatigue.
Absolutely. He doesn't have any time to rest here. There are only a couple of short straightaways at Mid-Ohio. Every few seconds he's got another car to pass, and each one is another challenge.
David Hobbs, what is the toughest part of this race at Mid-Ohio for you personally?
Well, one of the biggest problems with running Can-Am car in this race is going to be the traffic out there, because we have a closing speed on some of the smaller cars of probably 80 or 90 miles an hour down the straight. And that's going to be the trickiest thing, because we've got 3.5 hours of this. There's a lot of traffic out there, 50 cars, 2.5 mile, very twisty circuit. So it's going to be extremely busy.
You'll recall that John Morton discussed these very same problems concerning traffic just before he went out of the race.
Well, it's a problem, Gil, for David and for Howdy Holmes here riding in second place with these fast cars. It's a lot like trying to run a really big motorcycle through a field of 10-speed bicycles. You really got to pay attention.
Howdy Holmes is paying attention now as he comes through the turns, and here is car number 25, Chip Mead, coming into the pits, undoubtedly to have that front end examined.
Well, just like we thought, that car just got very, very beat up when it went out in the grass that second time there. I'm sure they're going to have a look at the front end. Yep. There goes the old fiberglass bodyworks bent around there a little bit, and I'm sure that they've probably just bent that front suspension up a bit.
And back to the leader now. There's David Hobbs in car number 1, and he's approaching some slower traffic again.
Yeah, he's got to get lined up. Now,
Oh, there's a problem, a very definite problem, but the leader got through it, and got through it in good shape. David Hobbs clean through there.
Well, things broke right for him because he had 3 cars in front of him. That you can see that one Corvette is way on the outside. He just takes a nice big loop across the racetrack in front of him, but David had enough time to get on the binders and stay out of the way. But that's twice, so I wonder if he's got a third one waiting for him out there somewhere.
You believe these things happen in threes?
Let's hope not.
There's the Jim Moyer Phil Pate car that caused that problem. As we watch David Hobbs now coming around. Seems to have everything under control.
Yeah, a little clear running right now. Just a few minutes of respite there from all that traffic, but it's lying out there. He's coming into the pits.
Could this be a driver change?
Very possibly. That's Roy Wood, the car owner. Roy was going to run another car with George Fulmer, but George only won a few laps at the opening of this race and parked it, so Woods hasn't had a chance to run it off. Yep, Ryan Redmond is getting ready to get into the car. David's climbing out. Be careful of that paintwork there, David.
And the car is up on the jacks now as we look at Howdy Holmes, and he has a chance to take over the lead right now.
Boy, these guys have been running together all day. Brian's settling down into the car. By golly, they're going to change some tires on that thing, Gil. That's going to eat up some time, definitely eat up some time. That's going to give Howdy a good chance.
And here he comes around. If he can pass before they get out of the pits, he will have taken over first place.
Boy,
it's a very long pit stop.
Oh, yeah, it's a chore. Brian is stuck down in that car. They've got to hook his seatbelts up, and here comes Howdy.
Here he comes, and Howdy Holmes is now in first place in car number 11.
Boy, and look at that. They're helpless there. Hobbs is walking around. They're changing both the rear tires. That's going to take a lot of time. Meantime, he's out on that 180-mile-an-hour stretch, putting some distance between them.
And the longer they stay in the pit, the more the distance they're going to have to close down. He's going to try to get a lap on it.
Oh, yeah. This is taking all kinds of time, too much time. Redmond's got to be going crazy in there.
It must be very frustrating for the driver to be sitting there just waiting to be pushed off.
Oh, he just wants to go. Now they're having a little trouble getting, now the car won't start, battery's flat, there it goes.
Brian Redmond's going to have to stand on it to catch Howdy Holmes. Brock Yates is with David Hobbs.
David, looks like some folks were in your way out there.
I had a guy spin in front of me under the bridge. I had to stop. I had a guy take a shortcut at the top end of the track and just missed out one bend altogether and rejoined further down, so it's slow up for him. And the biggest danger of that, of course, is that you can't see very well out the back of these things. And, of course, if someone's plowing up behind you at great speed, so sitting there waiting for the old whiplash. But the car was going to find a bit of an oil leak from somewhere, but I don't think it's serious.
Well, here's a man having serious problems. Chip Mead in car number 25 is still in the pits and probably is through for the day. Not only front-end damage to the car, but the hood is up, and that is bad news indeed. And car number 00, Danny Angayas, is in with an unscheduled pit stop. I don't know what the problem is, but his chances for third place are dwindling the longer he stays in the pits. We're getting close to the finish of the Lumbermens 500. We're back at Mid-Ohio as our Diamond P Sports coverage of the Lumbermens 500 continues. Howdy Holmes in car number 11, still the leader in the final laps. And Howdy Holmes trying to keep it together. Car number 00, driven by Danny Angayas, is still in the pits. It does not look good for him. And here's your third place car right now with Moretti getting in and a driver change and Jim Busby out. Number 30 can virtually nail down third place if they just get out of the pits and keep it on the racetrack. And there goes Moretti in car number 30. He's pulling back onto the racetrack. There's your third place car. And Roger Bailey said that's it for 00 and Danny Angayas. Brock?
Gil, I'm down here with Jim Busby, who just jumped out of the number 30 Moretti car, riding in third place. Jim, it must be plenty warm out there, huh?
Well, yeah, it really was. My Trek cool suit didn't work. I had absolutely no cooling from my cool suit. From the time I got in the car, I had no body refrigeration at all. From about 5 laps on, I was seeing cars and imagining braking points, and it was terrible.
And there's the leader, Howdy Holmes, in car number 11. And he is really wailing out there. Hey, and look who's coming. Number 1, Brian Redmond in the yellow car.
That Lola is strong. It's stronger than Howdy's car. I don't think there's any question that he's going to be able to pass Howdy. But Howdy's strategy must, at this stage of the game, be to hold off, run a steady pace, not race Brian, because Brian's got the speed. He's going to try to unlap himself, but he's still got a full lap to go. In other words, even if he gets past Howdy here, he's still got 2.4 miles more to go to catch up with him. So Howdy's got to sit there with that older car, let Brian get by, and hope for the best.
And here they come down the back straight. And look at Brian Redmond accelerate. Oh, did he accelerate? Goes right by him. He has now unlapped himself.
The interesting thing here, Gil, is that these cars, these Can-Am cars, to a lot of people, weren't supposed to go this far. They were kind of the nickel rockets in this race. They were going to be very fast in the early stages, but those Porsches and maybe the under 2-liter cars were going to last, and these guys weren't supposed to be around at the end. But there they are, 2 of them, and they've got big, big leads over the 3rd and 4th place guys.
Brian Redmond coming down the start-finish line by the pits. Remember, Howdy Holmes needs another pit stop, and here he comes. Howdy Holmes coming in for a pit and perhaps a driver change. Now, if Brian Redmond can get around this 2.4-mile course before this car number 11 comes out of the pits, he will then take the lead. A very dramatic moment here.
Absolutely, and it's going to be slow and agonizing as usual. These cars don't lend themselves well to driver changes. We've said that before. It's not like the Porsches, which have nice big wide doors and people can climb in and out of them without effort. Look at that. Brian is just steaming around this racetrack, and more so, to give him more of an advantage, there isn't much traffic out here now. All those 38 starters, a lot of them are sidelined, they're retired, so the track is nice and open, and Brian can just stand on the gas all the way around.
And he's doing just that. And car number 11 is still in the pits. There they are, still making that driver change, trying to readjust the cockpit.
Oh boy, it's rough. I agonize with him. Poor old Vern trying to get it done, and here he comes.
Here's Brian Redmond, and he's taken the lead, but he is also smoking.
Yes, sir. Little smoke. What does that mean? Vern is just crazy to get started. Wait a minute. David Hobbs getting on his little fireproof hood there. He must be getting ready to go back in the car again.
The only thing that I can think of is perhaps under the rules of this race, each driver must drive at least 1/3, and perhaps David Hobbs has not completed a third of the race in the cockpit.
Good point, Gil. If that is the case, that means that as Howdy and his crew pushed Vern Chupin back underway, dead battery there again, he gets started, but that means that Brian Redmond's got to come in again.
Oh boy, this race is far from over, and we're just down into the closing laps.
Very, very strange turn of events. Everybody thought that when Brian Redmond climbed into that car for the last time, he was going to go the distance. Now, with Vern Chupin out running very hard, a minute ago they were stopped in that number 11 car, and here comes number 1 again. He's into the pits.
Brian Redmond coming in, and let's see if we do in fact have the driver change. Yes, we're going to. David Hobbs motioning to get out of the car.
Oh, he is in a hurry.
There's 1 lap left to go. They've got to get out of the pits before Vern Chupin and car number 11. There he is before he comes around to the start-finish line.
Vern sees it. He sees the checkered flag. There's no question about it. He's got it in his grip. If he can just get around before this car. Uh-oh. No way. David Hobbs underway again, Gil. He's got it in hand if he can keep going all the way around.
Boy, this final lap, though, this is the time when the race drivers begin to start hearing all kinds of funny little noises. And as we have pointed out, some smoke has been coming from the rear exhaust of that Lola.
No fun, no fun. Hobbs was sitting there getting ready to taste the victory champagne. Suddenly, a little quirk in the rules sends him back out. And now he has to feather flip this thing around for the last few miles to get it home. And I'll tell you, if he breaks it now, he'll have to walk back to England because they'll really be upset with him in those pits.
It's a long swim, but he seems to have it under control. And as you mentioned, he is very fortunate that there doesn't seem to be any traffic. And Chupin is coming up on some slower cars.
I don't think Vern really expected it to get this close to the front because this car is old. It's a tired old girl. He's done a super job along with Howdy Holmes to keep it in for this long.
And David Hobbs just heading now, trying to bring it home.
Boy, just
and here he comes. And there's the checkered flag, and David Hobbs has won the Lumbermens 500. And I'll tell you, there was some very quick change of events in the closing laps of this race. There's your second place finisher, Vern Chupin. And here's David Hobbs, and the winning Hobbs Redmond Lola will join them in victory lane here at the Lumbermens 500. At the Lumbermens 500, Can-Am cars finished 1-2 with a Porsche third. Brock Yates is now standing by with the winners, David Hobbs and Brian Redmond.
Who got the bright idea to make the driver change at the end?
One of the opposing teams.
Is that right?
Came down and quietly pointed out that there was this minimum clause. So we went into immediate cardiac arrest and decided to bring the lad in.
Did the car behave as you expected? A lot of people didn't think a Can-Am car would go the distance.
It did. It was very well prepared by Roy Wood's racing crew, especially for this type of race. We did a lot of work on the car, especially on the brakes, to try and make them last. And I think we drove it not as you would drive it in a sprint, and that's what makes the difference.
A very interesting race with 92.9 miles an hour, the average speed by the winners, the victory margin 1 minute and 7 seconds, the fastest lap 100 miles an hour by the Frisbee. And now here is Brock with the second place finisher, Vern Chupin.
What do you think about the future of this kind of a race with this format with all these different classes running? Does it make sense over the long haul?
Well, I think it's interesting, and I can see people building special cars for this race. I mean, there's a big purse, and it's worth having a go for. And next year, I think more people will come along with maybe Can-Am cars that have been modified or bulletproofed, if you like, and have a go at it. Run bigger engines and so on, you know.
Well, you certainly did a terrific job, and our congratulations for an excellent work.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Brock.
For sure.
Thanks.
Thank you, Brock. This year at least, the tortoise did not manage to catch the hare in the Lumbermens 500. Instead, a pair of smooth-talking, smooth-driving Englishmen, Brian Redmond and David Hobbs, came across the Atlantic to win the world's richest sports car race, the North American Sports Car Championship. On behalf of Brock Yates, this is Gil Stratton saying, so long, everybody.